Hi, this is the voice of Heidie Calero with another economic capsule, which this time we have entitled To the Rescue of Puerto Rico's Infrastructure. And again, this is a blessed island, really, but with a very bad habit of depending on everything for federal funds. Well, at some point in time, that has to stop. And if we are not going to use those funds efficiently and effectively, then we are going to have a real problem, either with U.S. Congress or the President of the United States. The first graph that I'm depicting for you is how the investment in infrastructure in Puerto Rico has been declining. Back in the 1970s, Puerto Rico invested like $853 million in its infrastructure that accounted for almost 44% of its fixed domestic investment. If we move to Hurricane Maria, after Hurricane Maria, back in 2018, we had this influx of federal disaster funds that amounted to $5.7 billion in terms of investment, and that accounted for 36% of all domestic investment. But we are now declining as of 2022 to 23% and a lower amount. We need to really focus on infrastructure. Then we have the timeline in this graph, the timeline for the federal disaster funds for Puerto Rico. That's from Hurricanes Irma and Maria, the earthquakes, COVID, and then Hurricane Fiona. All that has been happening during the past 6 years. The total that Congress has assigned to Puerto Rico is $73.8 billion. And here is the timeline from 2022 through the period of 2635. And notice that in 2022, it was $1.9 billion, or 3% of all that $73.8 billion. By 2025, it amounted to 8% of those $73.8 billion, or 6.1. But notice that 56%, this massive, almost close to 60% of these funds are going to disburse, yes, 2026 through 2035. I mean, that's a long way to wait for those funds to be invested in Puerto Rico. And then let's look at the timeline for the bipartisan infrastructure law that Puerto Rico also benefits from. And that was approved in March of 2023. And as the graph depicts for you, the columns are the amounts in terms of millions. In 2022, it used to be $322 million. And by 2025, it was sort of scaled into $320 to $325 million, or 20% of that $1.6 billion allocated to Puerto Rico. But again, notice it's in 26 to 2035, it's almost 20%, but it's spread over a period of almost 9 years. Let's look at then the composition of that bipartisan infrastructure funds. This pie depicts for you that $1.6 billion, 41.7% goes to transportation. That's mass transit or public transportation. It's the roads, it's buses, it's all that, ports, airports, all that included in transportation under 41.7%. Followed by climate, energy, and the environment, including resiliency for Puerto Rico, again, because of all these climate changes, at 34% of that $1.6 billion. And then broadband, important for Puerto Rico to be competitive. It's not just 5Gs, it has to be 6Gs, it has to continue escalating. For broadband, it's 24.2% of that $1.6 billion. And then finally, bridges and highways, some segments of these projects that are included in this bipartisan infrastructure funds for Puerto Rico. We have like 252 bridges in Puerto Rico and 1,492 miles of highways which are in really bad condition. Well, over the next 5 years, Puerto Rico will receive $1.1 billion, assuming that Puerto Rico can use these funds effectively. Making water safe, be it water-led pipe with $28.4 million, safe drinking water, $18 million, clean buses, especially for school, It's $9.9 million, and then for others it's going to be all in all $5 billion over 5 years. And then energy, ports and airports. In energy, clean energy, $58 million, ports $47 million, and then airports $26 million, which they started receiving back in 2022. If you like our economic capsule, don't forget to go to YouTube, subscribe to the voice of Heidie Calero. This is a service of Puerto Rico Economic Pulse. Give us a like in those capsules that you really enjoyed. And don't forget, if you would like to know how Hurricane Maria forges Puerto Rico's economic future, to go to our webpage, hcalero.com, acquire this study, which is full packed with disaster damages as well as opportunities that Puerto Rico has. And don't forget, the economy is all of us. Thank you.